Yeah, so I'm wanting to just share what emotions are likely to come up at this time, what's good or bad, and I'll give you a tip right now. Everything's valid, okay? And how this could be, what is actually being triggered psychologically for many people. Obviously, we're all different, but there seems to be a lot of common themes that I'm seeing in my clients and that I'm experiencing myself. And then I'm going to go into that process of how to kind of just accept where we're at instead of resisting, because often the resistance causes a deeper sense of overwhelm and anxiety. Okay. So emotions that you're likely to feel at this point range from fear and worry to irritability and anger and grief. Grief is a big one. You know, we're grieving the ways that we used to know. We are grieving what we expected to happen that's not happening. So there's a lot of grief that's present that people haven't necessarily realized that that's what they're experiencing. And then sometimes we feel happy, and then we feel guilty because we feel happy. Like maybe we're not allowed, we shouldn't be feeling happy given the situation. So there can be lots of ups and downs and shifting emotions as well. All of them are valid. Okay, every single emotion is valid. There is no right or wrong or good or bad emotion at this point in time. And all our emotions are always valid. Oftentimes we unfortunately can be brought up to believe that certain emotions are bad, like feeling angry or even being depressed or sad. We may, because our parents and our parents and their parents and their parents all had the same experience of no, don't feel that. That's not a good thing. So we can start to believe that our emotions are bad, but they're all valid, particularly at this point in time where we're likely to be triggered and stirred up on many levels. Okay, so I just want to mention that what we're going through now is a trauma. A trauma is diagnosed, is classified as an event that is perceived as threatening to the self or to others. And what we're going through is threatening on a number of levels in terms of there's this threat out there, the actual coronavirus. There's the threat of possible death. There's the threat to our freedom and to our very ways of living and our basic needs in some senses, even though we've still got homes to live in. There's often been this, it seems like there's been this underlying threat that, maybe we might not be able to get food. And that's triggering on a deep, primitive, primal level for many of us too, as that's a very basic need that's in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's right down there at the bottom. And so it's going to be triggering for many people. So the thing about trauma is that trauma, it triggers earlier traumas. So whenever we experience a trauma state and our brain perceives it as something that's not safe, then our earlier traumas are triggered in the sense that we almost feel them all compounded on top of each other. And the trauma experience is usually where we feel powerless, overwhelmed, and out of control. And if you think about it, that's often the experience of what children feel like, because they don't have the capacity and the tools and the maturity to manage scary situations as well as adults. So what often happens when we have a trauma as an adult is it actually triggers that internal wound of being a powerless, overwhelmed, out of control child. And so you may find that you actually at times are feeling very little and powerless and even alone. And it's because you're not just experiencing the present situation, you're actually experiencing a familiar feeling that is related to similar traumas that you may have had in your past. And you may not have even had overt traumas in your past. It's just like, as I mentioned, we have not been brought up in a society where emotions have been allowed. So oftentimes there was not emotional holding when we grew up, because our parents were not able to provide it, because their parents did not provide it, because their parents did not provide it. And it's a bit of a vicious cycle. So that as children, there would be times where perhaps we were angry or anxious and we weren't allowed to have those emotions. So those emotions felt terribly scary, to the point that they might have even felt like they would overwhelm and kill you. Because for a child, if you think about just the feeling of the emotion, and when we're children, we're deeply in touch with our feelings. You can feel that anxiety, it actually like rises in your body. You can feel that the feeling, right, is energy. For a child who's feeling it, they don't understand what that means. It is very frightening. So that experience of not being able to control the feeling and feeling powerless is one that the child does not want to feel. And so very early on, we learn that when we have these feelings of anger, feeling out of control and powerlessness, we must find ways to shut it off so that we can feel safe. So what happens is, now when we go through a trauma and those same feelings come up and we get triggered into feeling powerless and overwhelmed and almost like children again, we also use the same coping mechanisms we've always used. And for many of us, that's going to be doing and being productive. For many of us, it's escaping through, well, doing is often, it's the work thing that often is a big one, but escaping through substances. And so what's so interesting is not being able to have cigarettes and alcohol here in South Africa means that people are being forced to face a lot of their shadow, their wounding, because they don't have those usual escapes. We can't just go outside and go for a run, which is a way of also escaping to some degree. So these adaptations and these ways of escaping have always been there and are our normal go-to. But at the moment, for many of us, a lot of them are not an option. And now we also, what I'm seeing is so many people are getting really busy and trying to, and there's, I've noticed how many people are cleaning their houses really thoroughly at the moment. And they're trying to perfectly homeschool their children and be on top of everything. And it must all be right. And we have to tick off all the little things that we're supposed to do. And that is because that helps us to feel like we're in control. So if I'm on top of everything I'm doing, if I am doing it really well, then I must be okay. Then I'm in control and I feel a sense of power, of being empowered. So as children, this is actually where it's learned. It's learned that to rather feel and to experience the emotion, just to start doing, to suppress the emotion, and to cut off sort of body and mind. And to get really good at doing stuff as well, because then you get praise, which is even better. It makes you feel good about yourself. It makes you feel worthy. It doesn't make you feel like yuck and out of control. And so many of us are in the space of possibly going into a lot of doing to try and manage the feelings. And the downside of this is that it's exhausting. It's exhausting to be experiencing emotional trauma, which is suppressed, and then to be keeping busy doing all the time as well and putting all your energy into that can really deplete and overwhelm us. And when we're trying to suppress the emotion, what also happens is, as soon as you become aware of the emotion, you become anxious that you have the emotion. So you almost become anxious about the anxiety. So while the anxiety is normal, the experience about the anxiety can exacerbate it so that it becomes totally overwhelming. And it's experienced again as the child who does not know how to be with that feeling, because very few of us have learned how to. So what I really want to talk about today is how to have more confidence in your ability to just acknowledge what you're feeling and to accept where you are without needing to escape from it, and just to find a safe place within yourself, regardless of what's going on outside of you. Okay. And so I just want to go back to that acknowledgement piece, just to acknowledge to all of you that this is really massive, what we're going through, and that your emotions are valid, and that it's absolutely normal that you're going to be feeling these emotions. It would be very, very strange if people were completely flat at this time or always happy, because to me that would say there's a suppressing going on. I don't, you know, our emotions are, they're the way our body talks to us as well. Your fear comes up to let you know that something's dangerous, so that you'll act on that and won't continue to put yourself in harm's way. So naturally there's going to be anxiety now. So this acknowledgement kind of allows a softening around your emotions. So instead of saying, it's bad that I'm feeling this, what's wrong with me that I'm feeling this, there's a softening and an allowing of the emotion, and just recognizing it as being normal and valid for the situation that you're in, because it is a very big and very crazy situation with lots of unknown. Yeah. All right. So that acknowledgement's a really good place to start. And I often like to tell my clients, because your emotion is very often actually being experienced as if it's the child emotion that you're feeling. So it basically often goes back to that same core wounding. And a really nice technique is when you feel your emotion, to just put your hand on your heart and just kind of just go, yeah, I see you, I feel you, and this is difficult. And this simple exercise really can help to calm that child part of you that feels out of control, unacknowledged, and alone in this experience. So it's like your adult self is actually meeting your child self, and that will help you to feel more empowered as well. Okay. I work a lot with masculine and feminine energies, and I'm going to share this next technique with you that is very much based on these energies. We all have masculine and feminine energies within us. For the most part, we tend to rely a great deal and value our masculine energy, which is our doing, being in control, striving, driving, linear, logical, rational side. And so that is, don't want to confuse you too much, that is actually the unconscious masculine. That is when it is out of touch with the feminine. Ideally, the masculine is giving us direction, it is giving us protection and support. But when it is not in balance with the feminine, it often will come out as that direction is very driven, it's very striving, it's very logical, linear, it's giving a box to go in as opposed to just a safe space. So I'm going to talk more about that now. Your feminine, which many of us have shut down because for many it's not valued in our more patriarchal society, in both men and women, is the ability to be with the unknown. It's the ability to be emotional, to feel connected to yourself and to others, and to have to experience your intuition and your inner wisdom and guidance, and to just basically to nurture and soften. It's not the hardness of the masculine. And because our world has been very, very masculine driven, we're all battling a lot at this time where everything is slowed down. It's almost asking for a slowing down, a softening and settling into where we're at without being able to run and do and escape. And we're all kind of having to come up against our emotions, and it's really quite trying when we haven't done that for most of our lives, and when we have been out of touch with that more feminine process. Okay, so this process that I'm going to run you through, which is inspired by the work I've done with my mentor, Juliet Haynes, is to bring in both the holding and support of the divine masculine energy and the support and the grounding and nourishment of the divine feminine energy from below. So it almost feels like you are surrounded and supported and held in this place where you can just allow the emotions to come, and they are then being held for you, not by you, or you can be with them while you are supported. So it's similar to the adult allowing the inner child to have the emotions. And if you just think about a pot, and when the pot is simmering, we tend to, with our emotions, they're simmering. As soon as we feel in our body that they're simmering, we put that lid on. And then what happens, of course, is that it helps for a while, but then eventually that lid boils over, and the lid, gets blown off. And we do this with our emotions as well. Ideally, if you lift that lid off while it's boiling, the water simmers right back down again. And the energy is actually released. So the more that we can allow the energy of the emotion to just be there and not interpret it as bad or as there's something wrong, and rather just acknowledge it and say, it's normal that I'm going through this right now. It's expected that this is what I should be feeling. It actually allows the energy of that emotion to just move through you and to be released. So this process that I'm going to share with you, it's Diane, I think you were on the last call. So it's similar, but this time it's going to be, we're also going to work with just letting go of the things that we are resisting, letting go of our expectations about how it should be and what we should be doing, because those two make us get very anxious. When we hold fixed expectations and ideas about what life should be like and what we should be like, it can cause a lot of stress and exacerbate that powerlessness when we find that it doesn't happen the way we want it to be, or we can't be the way we think we should be. All right. So rather try and hold a preference for what you would like, but allow that preference to be loose and flexible. Otherwise, it's going to be a very hard time, and there's going to be a lot of coming up against that resistance. So if you're all comfortable, and I'm going to start this process now. You're welcome to turn your cameras off if you want to. I know some people prefer to do that, because I'm going to ask you to just make yourselves comfortable and to close your eyes. Okay. All right. So I'd like you to just focus firstly on your breathing. And as you breathe, take your awareness to the top of your head. Begin to breathe in through the top of your head, imagining that your breath is entering the top of your head and coming right down into the base of your spine. And as you breathe this breath, you could visualize it as golden light from above, like sunlight. Now this is the light or the energy of what we call the divine masculine. And for many of us, we'll have different ways of conceptualizing this holding energy. For those who are religious, there may be a particular figure to which you assign this kind of holding and protective energy. However you want to imagine it, this energy, this golden light that you're breathing into your body, has the quality of being very present It is present with all that you are. It is present with all that you are feeling. And it is present without judgment. So this divine masculine energy just holds a space all around you and within you for all that is happening and all that you are at this moment in time. So this presence is very holding and very containing. It is like the banks of a river holding the water and guiding it, giving it direction. So this masculine energy provides this spaciousness, this containment, and also gives us guidance and just holds everything while being deeply present and non-judgmental. So breathing in that golden light from the top of your head, right down your spine to your pelvis, feeling as if it almost surrounds you from behind you, wrapping you in this holding space. And because this presence is holding you, perhaps you can allow your own body to soften just a little bit. Perhaps you may become conscious of how much you're holding in your jaw, in your shoulders, your stomach muscles, your back. And just giving yourself permission to just soften those areas as you relax into the holding and support of that masculine presence, that divine masculine presence. And just because of this letting go and releasing, it enables a sense of spaciousness and emptiness with the ability to just let go of all that you're holding. We think a lot when we worry because there's a tendency to believe that somehow we will fix it by worrying about it and thinking it all the time, thinking it through. So taking your awareness to your head and just bringing that golden light into your head, just being very present with all that's going on in your head at this time. And perhaps you might get a felt sense of the busyness, the stories, the narratives that kind of run on a hamster wheel round and round. Sometimes it might feel like there's just random thoughts just zinging here and there, popping up and grabbing your attention and taking you off in a different direction. So just bringing that presence of the masculine energy to all that's going on in your head and holding all of that in that spaciousness and just releasing with your out breath. And you can even focus on relaxing your breath, your jaw, so that as you breathe out, there's a softening and a slackness in your jaw. And it allows that release of the breath to just be far more of a release. It also results in a parallel release in your pelvis, which enables you to feel more deeply grounded. So breathing out and releasing all that's going on in your head, creating that empty, black spaciousness behind your eyes. Feeling the holding and containment of that masculine energy. So if you're not having to hold it all, then you don't have to hold all of those thoughts and all of those worries. And giving yourself permission to release them and to let them go. And then bringing that breath down and bringing that masculine energy, that holding, down into your heart. Feeling your shoulders relax, your middle back, all around your heart space. Experiencing an opening and softening as you lean into the holding of that divine masculine energy, into that containment. Keeping your jaw slack, really releasing with that out breath. And softening in your heart space so that no matter what is there, it can just be there. Just allowing it all to be in this holding space, in this spaciousness. Allowing all the anxiety, irritation, frustration, powerlessness, grief to just be there and to be held in this space while you are held, while you are supported by this masculine presence, this masculine energy. And you may feel some hard edges, some protection. Just the hard edges that protect the more tender places that you feel need to be protected. And that may have been triggered at this point with all that's going on. So just also holding a space, keeping that holding presence there all around the protection. And just letting the protection be there. And that's valid too. And as you ease yourself into the holding of that masculine presence, as you allow your body to soften more, you may find that some of what you're holding in your heart space begins to ease as well. And focusing again on that out breath, that slack, relaxed jaw, really letting go. And bringing that divine masculine energy right down into your pelvis and your belly. Feeling that containment and that holding. And experiencing a spaciousness within your whole body. Giving yourself permission to really just let go into this holding. And as you let go and relax into the pelvis, become conscious of the ground beneath you. The divine mother energy, earth energy. Just allow yourself to melt into the ground, to be held and supported. We spend a great deal of our time pulling upwards in our bodies. This is our self-reliance, holding it all together. and it's really exhausting. So giving yourself permission to feel safe enough in the holding presence of the masculine to really just let go and be supported by the earth. Imagining a deep root from your pelvis right down into the earth, deeply rooting you into this solid, stable nature of the earth, creating a very good foundation to just hold you. So feeling that softening in the pelvis, experiencing that holding of the divine masculine energy, so that you can allow your whole body to just soften downwards. And that root also enables you to receive the deep nourishment and the vitality of life force from the earth. The earth gives life to so many forms. All the plants we see around us, they're fed by the earth. Together with the energy of the sun, the masculine energy, the earth creates and gives form to life. And within us, when the masculine and the feminine meet, we also can create from a space of our true, authentic power, and not from a place of fear. This is where, if we get busy, we do it from a place of being inspired from our authentic desire to express ourselves in the world in some way, to share something, to create something. And it's a very different space versus doing from fear, which is more unconscious and driven and urgent. When we're in that space, it's hard to stop. We kind of get into a bit of a wired frenzy at times. So settling into this rootedness into the earth, receiving the creative life force of the divine mother energy, the divine feminine energy, rising up through that root into your pelvis and into your body, and meeting the holding and the containment of the divine masculine energy. And as you soften your belly, start to become conscious of the forms that you have created that no longer serve you. Becoming conscious of the way that you are perhaps trying to be in the world, the ways that you believe you should be doing things, or the ways you believe you should be being, that are maybe not serving you and not coming from your truth. And allowing those forms to be released right down that root deep into the earth, where they just become pure energy. Releasing your belief systems, your beliefs about how things should be as we go forward, what you would like to happen. Surrendering those expectations that are perhaps causing a great deal of anxiety and resistance in you. And as you let go of those expectations, just feeling how you can be held by that divine masculine energy and that divine feminine energy to enable you to just be in the void of what is left, the uncertainty of what is to come. Trusting that you are not in this space alone, You are always held and supported. This masculine and feminine energy is within us always. It is the evolutionary drive that enables us to reach our greatest potential in life, to stand in our truth, to fulfill our purpose. This masculine and feminine energy guide us in this process. And the more we open to these energies in our life, the more supported and held and guided we can feel, so that we don't feel so alone. And so just tuning back into the belly and letting go of other forms that are no longer serving you, perhaps relationships, habits, other ways of thinking and doing. A need to be in control. A need to be perfect. Breathing it all out, letting it go. All right, down into the earth. And feeling an increased relaxation and spaciousness in your body as you do this. Feeling the holding of the earth, surrendering into everything as it is, just softening, and experiencing the nurturing, compassionate, loving energy of the divine feminine coming into that spaciousness of the divine masculine, that containment that feels like it's been created. And holding every aspect of you, just loving and nurturing all the emotions as they are, all that you are experiencing in this moment, and all that is happening. With the constant presence and holding of that masculine, and that compassion and softness and nurturing of the feminine. Giving you permission to let it all just be there, and to not have to fix it or run away from it or judge yourself, get hard on yourself. Just letting that all go as you rest into the presence of this divine feminine and divine masculine. Just taking a few more deep breaths. And bringing yourself back into the presence, space and time when you are ready.